Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. Last week we did our first live Q&A session, and during that session we got quite a few of these what if questions. What if there is a market crash? What if we end up living more than 100 years? What if we get bored during retirement? What if there is a medical emergency in the family? So in this video I'm going to share 5 shields that we've implemented to fireproof our retirement. You need to do the same because this journey to financial independence is not just a chase to a number, it is also about having the right security plan. You can't eliminate all the risks, but you can at least build robust defenses to make sure that whenever that risk happens, that you are ready for that. And I will share 5 such practical defenses or shields that we've implemented, and hopefully it can also help you in your journey. So let's start with the first one, which is the most expected and likely to happen. That is market volatility. During any retirement or during any 10, 15, 20, 30-year period, there is sure going to be a crash or a recession or a stagflation or some kind of highs and lows of the market. Now, the most impactful to retirement is what I call the sequence of return risk. And that is when, as soon as you retire, the market crashes. So you retired on a certain corpus and then the market crashes and you suddenly are withdrawing from a much lower value of your portfolio, and that too on your expenses. So the simple solution to that, in not just the sequence of return risk, but overall volatility over a lifetime, is to have a very good bucket strategy. And what we've implemented is what we call a 3-bucket strategy. Some people go for a 2-bucket strategy. In our 3-bucket strategy, we have investments that cater for the first 5 years of a retirement, which is what we call the short-term bucket. Then we have investments that cater to the next 5 to 10 years of the retirement life, which is the mid-term bucket. And then the long-term bucket is for anything that is beyond that period. So that's the growth bucket. As expected, in your short-term bucket is where you need to make sure that you have enough liquid funds, and those funds that are not linked to the market volatility or are least impacted. So for example, fixed deposits, your cash, any bonds that you have, which is fixed bonds for a certain time, which the value of the bond as well as the return of the bond is predictable. So what it does is that this particular short-term bucket makes sure that you ride through any kind of crash that may come in that is lasting more than a year or lasting less than 5 years, because you're using your short-term bucket during that time. And what you're essentially doing is that you're replenishing this bucket as and when the market booms over that 5 years period, so that you're consistently floating that short-term bucket for addressing the subsequent 5 years on. So this bucket strategy helps you to ride over not just any kind of market volatility, but also the sequence of return risk, and also not get emotional when the markets are going up or down. So make sure that you have a strong bucket strategy. So that is the first one. The second, what if, or the risk that is longevity risk. That is that what if you end up living more than what you've planned in your retirement? Because generally what you would do in what you've read about 4% rule, etc., is that those simulations are for a 30-year retirement lifetime. What if you end up living 50, 60 years? Maybe you retire early. We are around 50 and you never know. We end up living more than 100. So that means that we have to plan for 50 years of retirement. So what we've done that is that we've kept our withdrawal rate lower than 3%. So our withdrawal rate always hovers between 2.5 to 3%, depending on how the market is performing. So if the market is really booming, that means that the withdrawal rate becomes a bit lower. So in the range of 2.5 to 2.75. And if the markets are low, then the withdrawal rate is around 3%. What this does is that it mathematically makes sure that the chance of you running out of money for a longer period reduces. It doesn't completely guarantee, but it minimizes it to quite extent. In addition to that, what is very important to minimize, or the shield, is to have a flexible withdrawal rate. So that means that you give yourself bonuses in your expenses for the year when the markets are booming, and you also cut down on your flexible spending or discretionary spending when the markets are low. So in an ideal scenario, you should have a 60-40 in your overall expenses. So that means maximum of 60% of your expenses should be that are fixed expenses, and 40% should be your flexible expenses. Fixed expenses meaning your mortgage, your rent, your children's education, anything that is the upkeep, that is a consistent expense. While flexible expenses, your entertainment, your travel, the things that you can change based on your needs, that you don't need to, if you don't spend, it will not be the end of the world. So what it does is that you are withdrawing at between the 2.5 to 3%. So at least we are withdrawing from 2.5 to 3%. When we see that our portfolio is booming, that means our percentage of the withdrawal rate is going down, we give ourselves a bonus for that year. So far, interestingly, we are even struggling to spend that bonus. But yes, that is the separate topic, that it's not that easy to just consistently continue spending the flexible expense budget that you may have. So in summary, to reduce your longevity risk, or if you end up living for a long time, you need to have a lower withdrawal rate and also a flexible expenses where at least you can vary your discretionary expenses depending on the market conditions. The third what if is about medical emergencies. What if there is a medical emergency for yourself, your spouse, or within your family, your parents, etc. So here you need to have what I would say a very strong healthcare plan. And you need to break down, because what people do is that they just equate and they say, hey, for any medical emergency, I will have the emergency fund. That is a very simplistic way. And I would say that the emergency fund is for other purposes, and I'll come to that. You should have a health care plan, which should be a lot more detailed. So how our health care plan works is that we've detailed our use cases, or what kind of healthcare needs we will have. So for example, one is that when you're traveling anywhere in the world, and then during the travel you end up with some emergency, that you have an accident. We do a lot of hiking. So what if during one of the hikings we fall down, break our leg, etc. So for that, you need to have very good travel insurance coverage. So we always go for the top travel insurance cover that makes sure that we can be repatriated from that country. If there is any helicopter need, even to airlift us from some national park, etc., that should be covered, and it should not be an issue even traveling in countries like US, Singapore, or Japan, where the healthcare is very expensive. So that's the first part of that healthcare plan, that is the travel healthcare plan, with very good travel insurance that you should have, or at least medical travel insurance. The second part of the healthcare plan is that if you have any major surgeries that may come up, that you go to the doctor and the doctor say that you need a knee replacement, or that you have some issues with kidneys in future, or heart, etc. So for that, what we've done is that we've double insured ourselves. So we have insurance, healthcare insurance in Thailand, we've got healthcare insurance in India, so that it gives us an option to even choose that where we would like to get our healthcare cover or this medical treatment on such a major surgery or operation. And for both these countries, we've got good medical insurance, because we also need to build our medical history. And the third is that if there is a minor surgery, or there is a minor, maybe you don't need to even stay in the hospital, or maybe a night in the hospital. For example, I had a root canal done in Thailand. So for those, we do not have any medical coverage. We do this out of pocket. And at least on this one also, we keep in our flexible budget, during our expenses every year, whatever we budget out, we do keep certain part of that discretionary expenses for any such medical coverage that we may need. And the last part of that medical use case is that if you just need to go to a doctor to see if there is you've got stomach ache or headache or any allergy that you may have had, and they just give you medicine. So again, we don't get any coverage on that. So in a sense, what we are trying to do is that we are not trying to just get a blanket insurance for everything. We are trying to see what kind of medical problems we may have, and we try and address different kind of insurances for that. And to cover all this, the most important thing is to have in that healthcare plan is to even have your own healthcare. How are you going to take care of your health? That is very important, because sometimes, yes, that emergency can happen in terms of an accident, but sometimes it's just an accident in slow motion just because of the fact that we did not take good care of our health. One of the things that we are realizing after getting retired is that we used to take our bodies for granted, that we thought that we are waking up, getting into the car, going to the office, doing the whole day at office, coming back home, and that we are very fit. But when you start doing physical activity, which is a lot more the physical activity that we are doing than we were doing during our corporate years, we realize that the body starts telling you that, yes, it's not that easy if you don't take care. So making sure that you take care of health becomes an important part of that healthcare plan. So in summary, you need to address those medical emergencies, have a very good health plan. In addition to that, something that I've addressed in another video is that you also need to have what is called the ICE plan, and not the US ICE that is happening in the US right now, but what I call the in case of emergency. That you need to have a plan that what happens if there is an emergency, if there is a sudden unfortunate death of you or your spouse, that is there an emergency plan for your family that they can tap into for the bank accounts, where the will is, etc. So all that is part of that emergency plan. The fourth what if is the unknown unknowns, the things that we don't even know at the moment, and you need to even predict and plan for that. So for example, we were traveling earlier this year and we were somewhere, I think in the US that time, and suddenly we heard that there has been an earthquake in Thailand, and Bangkok, most of the buildings had a damage, including the place where we have an apartment in Bangkok. So our apartment also developed cracks, etc. So that was an unknown. We could not have predicted that there would be an earthquake in Bangkok and that would damage our apartment. And it did. For such unknown unknowns is where you need to have that emergency fund available. Fortunately for us, in our case of this, the cracks in the building, we had the insurance of our apartment, so that helped us. But that insurance only covered till certain things, because unfortunately, when you read the fine print, then you see that somewhere in the insurance it says that the act of God, certain things are not covered. So that's where you need to have that emergency fund. As we keep saying in many of our videos, you need to have an emergency fund that should take care of at least 2 years of your expenses. That means all your annual expenses covered for 24 months. Minimum should be 6 months, even if you're starting your journey towards this financial independence. And as closer you get towards your retirement age, it should be 24 months. So that 24 months of that emergency fund helped us to take care of all the repair works that we had to do in the apartment. Fortunately, it was not that it drained our 24 months of expenses. It was comparatively, we needed some painting work, some filling, cements, and some small little, work that needed structural things. So it was not that big that it caused the 24 months of fund to be vanished away. But having said that, you need to make sure that you have that for such unknown unknowns that can happen in life. And the last what if is what I would say is not a financial what if, it's a much more psychological or emotional what if. That is just the fear of the retirement. That what if I get bored? What if there is some other social aspect that just doesn't let me enjoy my retirement? And that is a very important part, because one thing that while we have been interacting with so many people, we realize that the focus is so much on withdrawal rate and taxes and investment portfolio that people tend to ignore that, and that becomes the most important part. So for that, you need to have what I call the hobby and hustle plan. That means that you need to develop certain side hustles that you can do during your retirement, and you should start testing those side hustles during your financial independence journey or while you're still working. Because you can't just flip a switch as soon as you retire and say, today onwards, I will do the side hustle, because you may or may not like it. So for example, even 5 years before we retired, perhaps I would even say 7 years before we retired, I at least realized that I enjoy teaching, I enjoy mentoring people, I enjoy providing trainings. So I started this as a side hustle that I started doing this as on a pro bono basis. And interestingly, I'm right now in Jakarta for one of those trainings that I'm trying to do on this pro bono basis. And I realized that I enjoyed that I've now carried this into my retirement years, and I just do it as a hobby once a quarter whenever time permits or whenever I like that it should be done. In addition to that, we develop this side hustle in a way that we create these videos. It costs us money, but it gives us a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment to interact with people from all walks of life and trying to increase this financial awareness as well as giving awareness about retirement. So find your calling that post retirement, what will be the things that you will do as in side hustles. So that's your hustle hobby plan. That's about the side hustles. In addition to that, start exploring your hobbies. And believe me, over a period of time, at least for us, the hobbies also evolve and change. So for example, during our corporate years, as one of the things to de-stress and detox, we used to do these complex jigsaw puzzles, so 3,000 piece puzzles, and many times our dining table also used to be just occupied with these puzzle pieces, and we've done these big puzzles, and it used to give us a lot of relaxation, just coming home after a stressful day and just putting those pieces of puzzles, etc. But interestingly, when we've retired, we are no longer doing those. Maybe we should start, but we don't find that desire of that hobby as we did during those corporate years. Maybe because that during that time we found it a good detox or a mental detox. But during retirement, we found some other hobbies. For example, now we're loving pickleball. We are really enjoying. We play almost every day, 2 hours of pickleball. It just not only gives us this workout, but we have a lot of social connection, and we built a good community and a good set of friends while playing pickleball. In addition to that, we also develop a new hobby of hiking, where you are in nature and you're really enjoying nature. So start exploring different hobbies, and you will see that the hobbies itself may evolve, but it is important to have those. And lastly, in addition to this hobby and hustle plan, you need to also have a relationship plan. Because once you retire, you realize that how much time you're going to spend together as a couple or as a partner. Because most likely by the time you retire, you become empty nesters. Your children have gone to colleges or studying or even working or even married, and they've settled. And during your corporate years, you're probably spending 1 or 2 hours of quality time in a day as a couple. But during your retirement years, you'll probably be spending 8 to 10 hours at least of that quality time together. So you need to build that relationship plan, because what you do not want is that suddenly in retirement, it puts you both in an awkward situation. So in summary, the shields that you need to make sure that you have as part of your retirement or planning, as well as during your journey to financial independence, the first is your bucket strategy to make sure that you're resilient against the sequence of return risk as well as the market volatility. The second being to have a withdrawal rate that is safe enough to make sure that no matter how long you live, that you can ride that, and have a flexible spending plan where you give yourself bonuses, but also at the same time cut costs if need be during those downturns. The third being that you have a strong healthcare plan and a health plan for you and your family, where you've looked at different kind of use cases that you may need for healthcare, as well as your in case of emergency plan, that in case something happens to you or your spouse, that your kids and your parents are taken well care of. Then for the unknown unknowns, you need to have this emergency fund of 24 months at least, because you don't know what is going to hit you from which side, like as I gave you this earthquake example. And for last, make sure that you're psychologically preparing yourself towards the retirement by having this hobby and hustle plan, and in addition to that, also your relationship plan. So hopefully these shields will help you become a lot more resilient. It may not overcome all the risks, but it will definitely have you very prepared to overcome those. So till the next video, till the next topic, and till the next location, goodbye from me. Bye bye.